Join me in the pledge.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States, republic, one nation, God, indivisible.
The roll call. Here. Oh, we skipped a lot of stuff there, didn't we? All right. So, do I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, since we've already moved down like 5 line items, to the city administrator's report.
You have an updated report at your seats. I'm going to go through a few of these because I need some feedback on these. Mississippi Lime Company is willing to do some early discussion. One of the things we've looked at is stormwater in the northwest quadrant of the city. A grassroots group contacted Mississippi Lime to talk about the potential detention basin. That was one of the options that we had. There's also a number of other options to open up the ditch line that ran to the South Gabourey Creek. The best option, probably the least expensive, is to look at a detention basin. Mississippi Lime is willing to sit down and start talking about that. If you would like to assign a committee to meet with them, we'd be happy to entertain that. Bob Donovan has talked to the homeowners who initiated the discussion. If Mississippi Lime is willing to sit down and talk at this point, I don't see why not. Not committing any funding to that yet, but if that's a possibility, it would be nice to have that lined up, not wait till last.
I would be willing to be on that committee.
Anybody else? Back there? Okay, I think we can do it with 2 people. That's Mayor to go along with the question. Thank you. Questionnaires, I put the questionnaires at your desks, or at your seats. If you would, if you want to fill that out and send it back to me, we're going to start budget discussions next week. Got all the department heads through the week to talk to. We can try to include what you're thinking we should be looking towards. And when I start inputting in information for a budget for pay raises, if I have the overall budget summary that goes at the beginning of August. So if you want to fill those out, send them back to me. You can also send it in an email, included with the budget calendar. So we're going to do our discussion then budget to the board. I may have the overall budget picture at the end of the month. Then budget, capital, and rise it back on the 24th. Then we'll look at I received a proposal for media equipment for the boardroom. I'd like to get the building committee together to talk about it. It exceeded what I anticipated. It's high tech. It is probably some of the best equipment possible. I don't want to cheap out on this room because it's going to be something we're going to use for 30, 40 years. So I want to make sure we put the right stuff in here that we can control properly and be able to have things up on the screen like we're supposed to, and have things for the audience to be able to see. But I'd like to talk about it with the building committee so they can give me some feedback on maybe how we can cut back on some of that cost. So if you guys are on the building committee are okay with it, I'll send you out an email after 3 o'clock in the afternoon at some point. We'll get together whenever you're in town, whenever we can do it. Okay.
How much was it over budget?
About $75,000.
75,000.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have money next year because our capital improvement fund will have increased again because we haven't spent anything over the last couple of years as we work through the process of getting to the point of construction. So we'll have the money, but I don't want to just say, let's spend it all. I think there's some ways we can cut back if we want to cut back. If not, I want that committee to look at it and say, yeah, I think this is something that's important and we should look at allocating money for it. And we may have a little ARPA money that we can also allocate towards it. So I just want to make sure we get it, if we're going to do it right, especially in this room, because we're decking it out as best we can to make it a proper setup for all concerned, for audience members, for those watching on video, and for those that are, those that attend and those that sit in the seats.
So does that have to come back to the board then for approval, or do?
Yeah.
No, because I trust those guys on the, the committee. If they say it's fine, then.
Well, if they say it's fine, what I'll probably do is go out for bid and then bring it back and say, and we'll have to do a budget adjustment if you approve the amount that the bids come back at. But I can at least scope it with the committee, which is what I've done on the other parts of this project. And I think we've turned out, we've come back with some pretty good bids and made some good decisions. We'll be switching our domain soon to stgenevieve.gov. We had initially thought it would have to be like stgenevievemo.gov because there may be other St. Genevieve's, but apparently we are the only one. So that will be, so you'll have to sign in again to your email eventually because we'll have the username change. So beware of that, but it won't be for a couple of weeks. We'll let you know, get hold of you and let you know when that change is going to be. And hopefully it's a smooth transition. We will keep the .org designation as well to route to the .gov when it starts. So, and we'll probably keep that forever anyway. Blaine Street water tank, if you haven't seen the videos, that has been knocked down. So that has been completed. And that was one of our budget items from the spring. And in the last couple of years, when we've done some street paving, the Special Road District has helped because we've done a section from the levee wall to the railroad tracks, or we did something on, there was another street that we did, was Main Street, not Main Street, 4th Street. We did from up on the hill up towards Riverside, and then they did, and then they did Riverview, and then they did White Sands. So it was kind of a coordinated effort. We don't have anything that's in their system that they're donating, that they can donate $25,000 to this year. However, they're willing to put money into their budget to do a section of North Main Street that is part of their route. And we have a section between Yanksfield and the levee wall that has not been done. It's the only section that hasn't been completed yet on that street. So they're going to allocate it and see what they can get done on that section, and that'll just be something we don't have to worry about in the future. So I have given them preliminary okay, unless somebody is totally aghast and against it. I think it's part of our road system, and they're willing to take the effort to do it. I think it's a positive for the city. And one more road we don't have to worry about an overlay.
That's not going to affect any of our levee gates or anything?
No.
Right.
No. That's a concrete area, and you just pave up to the edge of that concrete.
Isn't that kind of oiled and chipped now, that section?
I think so.
Yeah.
Any questions? Through a lot of stuff.
Happy, I don't know if this is the time, but I seen the representative from Cochrane here and stuff. Back to your section 2 and stuff, just wanting to know if they would be willing to attend that meeting, Cochrane with Mississippi Lime, to kind of a little more detailed explanation of what we've talked about up there.
We can coordinate with Dave and his crew, see if they're able to make that meeting. Sure.
Yeah, if you might give me your
You can
contact
zoom them in too,
information.
if nothing else.
If we meet here, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Happy. Move to staff reports. First up will be Tourism Director Tanelin Dollar.
Good evening. I want to start off with saying that the marketing matching grant, we have a letter awarding us $25,000 from the state, and then we would be matching that. I actually need to sign it tomorrow or have approval for it so we can respond. If we don't, then we lose it. So I hope you guys approve that. The other thing I've applied for is a destination marketing plan. I've requested $10,000 with the state from the state, with us kicking in possibly 15. And what that is we don't have an overall destination marketing plan. The plan actually would, all of the priorities and campaigns and all the tactics would, hinge on whatever that agency and I will decide is, the plan. Right now, we don't have a plan, and this would help. That has not been awarded yet, so I'll keep you posted. The Welcome Center, as you all probably know, that the ownership is being transferred to National Parks. And my recommendation is that we possibly engage Corbin Design, which is a wayfaring services company. And what they do is they work with both large organizations and small, like Eureka, Missouri, for example, helping them with, how do people come into your town and how do they find their way to certain things. There could potentially be kiosks, so when there is no longer a Welcome Center, what do we want to do? I think that's something that if you go to an expert, they might have some good ideas. So if you want me to, I can get a quote from her. If you would like to participate in a virtual meeting, let me know, because she's standing by to see if anybody wants to, be in on that. The other thing, I set up Google Voicemail, which is, of course, is part of Google Workspace, which I'm utilizing. I'm going to try to roll out in the community. What that does is we have an auto attendant, so when staff isn't there, which they're only there 4 days a week, it captures all the calls, it transcribes the message, and also allows the staff or anyone to respond. They can either text message back, they can call them back, or they can email them. And it's a really nice way for promoting events. I have it set up right now. I had it set up for the county fair, give information, have, of course, the ferry is number 1 on the prompt list. So that's kind of working pretty good. And then I had a planning session with the Tourism Tax Commission and boards to review, some of the priorities in the budgets. We're going to go over that. Next week, I'm meeting with the tourism director for Perryville. We are doing a co-branding to get leisure groups. And so the itinerary is 1.5 to 2 days. We're going to bring them into St. John. And then, since we can't accommodate with hotels or anything like that, then they would go to Perryville to spend the night. So right now, I'm going to be sending out information, asking and soliciting partners in St. John. Can you handle 20 people, 20 to 40 people? Okay, because the tour operators are going to need that, and I have the deadline is August 1st, so I have to get all this pulled together. I also have a new logo. I've basically taken the existing logo and I've updated it, and the reason I did that, and I'll share that with everybody at a later date, but the St. Genevieve logo is really specific to the town, whereas Visit St. John is specific to tourism, and that is our web address, okay? So I'm very pleased with the results, and this was very important to do because once we have our logo and our branding together, then we can roll out all the marketing and the promotional, and you don't want to backtrack. And so tonight we're going to have a demo on Visit Widget, and so if I get your approval, which I certainly hope, then of course I'm going to be able to take the new logo and the fact that we have a mobile app and a trip planning. I'm going to be able to include that in all of our marketing materials, all of our social media, all of our branding, to really, really promote it. And if you want to buy a hat with the new logo on it, I'll cut you a deal. No. So anyway, that's my report. Any questions?
I have a couple questions. Well, one, the resolution 2023-55 that is on the consent agenda for the $25,000 grant, it's a matching grant.
Yes.
How are those funds, and I know marketing,
Yes.
right? Is that
Yes.
towards the website? Where are we going to see those funds go?
No, it's not, it's prohibitive. State, they did that last year. You can't go twice and dip back in. This is all, it's all either social media, print, OTT, okay, or billboards, so it's all promotional.
Okay.
And then I have I had to submit a grid, you know, to allocate it. And it's all adjustable too, which is really nice. I love it because the state says, you know what, when you start learning things and you find out, you know, what's working and what's not working, you can go in and adjust it.
And so will
Is that helpful?
this go through the TCC, TAC?
No, they have their own funds,
Okay.
yeah. Sure.
I don't want this to come off wrong and stuff, but I want to go back to this section under the Welcome Center.
Yes.
I mean, what are we actually getting a
Excuse
quote
me.
from Corbin Design to make recommendations? Where, I guess I'm
Oh,
trying to understand why they're charging us evidently a fee.
oh, no, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, so if we don't have anybody at the Welcome Center, okay, this is the future, this is looking down the road, okay? So National Parks is taking over the Welcome Center. And, you know, if Janice or Mary or whatever, they retire years ahead, or, okay, we don't know when it's gonna happen, I guess. I think Happy can speak to that. But when there is no staff there, how are people gonna find how to get around? Now, we're gonna have, hopefully, visit widget on the mobile app and stuff, but my question is, should you have a kiosk where people can come at any hour, 24/7, and go up to it and go, oh, okay, now we know where to go? Okay, that's the question. Is that something that, before we decide, oh, let's put a kiosk here, let's put a kiosk over at the courthouse, or, I've had lots of feedback from residents, you know, well, they gotta have directions, they have to do something, let's do it in the courthouse, or let's do it in the back parking lot. And my suggestion is, we're not experts on wayfaring, okay? There's a firm that I've come across with Missouri Convention Visitors Bureau, okay? She did a presentation to all of us, and it was really well done. And so I asked her, I said, you know, could we get on a call with you? And I sent her a map of, you know, the downtown area. And I said, you know, she wants to talk to us and learn more, because what I'm thinking is, you know, hey, what if she comes down here for $500 or something and says, okay, well, you definitely don't want to make the mistake and do this, or do that, or do that. So instead of us, this is my recommendation, instead of one of us or the group kind of going, oh, I think we should just put it here, then, you know, we have an expert in that subject matter who is going to have different eyes and different recommendations. Now, it doesn't cost us anything right now. I mean, she's willing to just talk to us, you know, anybody that wants to learn more about it. I have a presentation, it's about, you know, 60 pages. You could flip through it and see, you know, what their expertise level is. And they've worked through lots of different communities.
The question is kind
And
of
so-
how we're going to handle the loss of the Welcome Center
Right.
from a marketing
Well, I do, but I
standpoint.
thought we talked about always having a staff there and actual people there.
No,
We probably will not have staff there once
Right.
they take over. So we'll have a kiosk there, we'll have some designated floor space, but what does that look like, and how are we going to go about doing that?
And this would address a visitor that may arrive after hours.
So this would be not inside the building, but outside.
You could be one or the other, or
Right.
both, or,
Well-
so we're just trying to figure out how to cope with the loss of the Welcome Center.
right, because the building's going to be owned by National Parks.
Right.
And they're not,
Okay.
they don't promote business, they won't,
Well, they can't. We've asked that question
Yeah.
a long time ago and stuff, and they can't, but
they
Right.
won't send somebody to a hotel or
I
a
just thought we had
restaurant.
decided we were always going to have a staff there and of some sorts.
I don't think we're going to be allowed to have a staff member in.
I think the reality is that may not be feasible down the
Right.
road.
We cannot find staff right now, and then also, I mean, we're in the same boat as Herman, Missouri, and many other, you know, where many businesses actually, you know, is finding people who want to do that. So consequently, you know, many cities that you go to and townships are saying, hey, you know, we're just going to put the information here. People are, you know, they go up and get on an airplane, they're ticketless, they're used to self-serving themselves. So as long as it's there all the time and it's easy to understand. So that's what I'm saying, is the future, these things should be explored now so that when that does happen, because it will happen, you know, then you're in a position to kind of go, oh, well, where should we put it? Well, we had somebody look at it, and she's really good at what she does, and this is her recommendation. Okay, what are the costs associated? Oh, now we know what that is. Do you want to have an indoor and outdoor? If you have an indoor, what building? I don't know. If you have an outdoor, where do you want it? Now, National Parks has said that we could, ask to have land in front of National Park there and have it deeded. But that's a stipulation that, I don't know, I don't know, that's a discussion that you guys all need to.
That's a further discussion we have not gotten into.
Yeah, that's a different subject. I'm just saying, I have somebody who does wayfaring. They're pretty qualified. If you want to know more, I'd be happy to find out more for you.
So you're saying she still wants to charge us a fee to come down and tell us?
No, I was
That was a
hypothetically.
$500 number, though, you just threw
I
out.
said she might charge that. So, I mean, people don't just drive and do things for free. If I say, would you come down, this is just a suggestion, would you come down, what would you charge to come down and evaluate our township?
So she's
Now,
not associated with this service?
she's the president, she owns Corbin Design, and they work with towns
Right.
on kiosks and signage and different things like that. I don't know what she's going to charge. She might say, I'll come down for free and then give you a quote for if you use my services to do this or that. I have no idea.
Right.
But any questions that you have, I'm inviting the board or anyone who wants to be part of the virtual meeting. She's holding open a date, and I said, I'll get back to you. So any questions that you have or any learning that you want, I'm just opening it up to you, like, okay, I mean, here's somebody that is really good and does this, we might want to chat with
I'm
them.
just used to the fact if somebody wanted to come down and sell you a service, they come down and present it, you don't have to pay them to come down, so that's my question.
No, I misrepresented that. I
Right,
confused it.
okay.
What I'm just saying is, she may, she may not. But usually when you hire a consultant, they don't usually do, somewhere along the line you pay, in the front end or the back end.
Yeah, I'd be willing to pay for a service possibly, but I'm not sure about that.
Well, I tell you what, if anybody's interested, you have my information. Please reach out to me and I'll give you the information. I can even share the slide deck with you. It's very well done. And then you can get an idea of, what is involved in this. It's pretty interesting. But then, the city, the tourism, everybody's in a position to say, okay, yeah, we've done this very thoughtfully and this is where we want to go, what we want to do. That's all I'm putting out. Okay?
Sure.
All right, great.
Thank you, Tamara. Next up will be Chief Steiger.
Good evening, everyone. You should have my report. We've had a busy month in June. We had 26 call-outs. Anybody that follows our Facebook posts, I put on posts there that we had a period in the end of June, first part of July. In 7 days, we had 16 calls. So we were running pretty much. Last month, we also hosted the Ozark Regional Firefighters Training Meeting. That's a consortium of fire departments from around the 7-county region. And every month, we travel to a different station in a different city and do training with them. And this was our turn to host it. We had a state fire marshal's office representative come in and talk about some training issues and things like that. We're in the middle of our annual certification testing. The certification testing we do is basically for our air packs and our ladders and everything, make sure that they're in good condition and they're safe. And it kind of covers the city too. If there would be an injury, the first thing you're going to do is say, hey, the stuff hasn't been certified or checked in the years. That helps cover us by showing the documentation that we're certified and up to date. If you remember a couple weeks ago, I told you that I applied for a grant for $72,187 for radio upgrades. I'm happy to tell you that I thought we was going to get maybe partial funded. We received full funding, $72,187. I got the contact now that the funding won't actually be available for a couple months. It's got to go through the state and get rubber stamped and everything is sent back down. In that one grant line for the last 3 years, we've received almost $147,000 for radio upgrades in that one grant period. And then the only other thing that I would want to bring to your attention is Tuesday night we had a countywide chiefs meeting, and some of the discussion there was about fire tags again. And I would like the board to consider looking at raising our fire tags. I believe our current fire tag price was set back in 2010, and obviously prices have gone up. We right now are one of 2 departments that are still at the lowest rate that we agreed on back in 2010. I think our residential is 50. The other departments in the county have all raised either close to double that or double that. So I'd be happy to supply you. I've got a spreadsheet laid out with all the county departments and all their charges that they have for their fire tags. I'd like to send it to the aldermen and let them take a look at it. I think it's something the city should consider. That's where our rural fire fund comes from, and that's kind of our slush fund for major repairs or vehicles and things like that. So I'll send it out to everybody so you get a copy of the spreadsheet that I put together.
Make sure you include your recommendation too, would you? Okay.
And I'd be open for any questions.
Penny, do you have any idea of how many people that are in that area of the fire tag area and stuff that we should be collecting to actually participate, and how many don't?
That would be a question for Sue. She sends out the invoices and she takes all of it in. I think our annual budget's like 27,000, give or take a little bit, is what we take in every year. I think it's right around there.
But it's still a voluntary.
Yeah, a fire tag is basically a rural subscription. We offer a service in a rural area, and a person has to pay for the subscription. You can have somebody side by side, one person pays for the subscription and the next person next to them doesn't. And legally, according to state statutes, we do not have to respond out to the person that doesn't have a fire tag. But there's a lot of variables that go into that. Obviously, we're not going to let somebody's life be in danger and not go, but it is a voluntary program. Insurances want people to have them, but I don't even think insurance companies can do anything other than refuse to cover them if they don't have a fire tag. So there's no real way to force anybody to pay anything like that.
And one other note, the recent deal you had out on 32 and stuff, we had to put several people in that stagnant pond out there on 32.
Yeah, we have, anybody that's not aware, we had an extrication call on 32 one Saturday a couple weeks ago, and it's a stagnant thing that also had sewage water from septic tanks and everything else going into it, and they were waist deep in mud and water and everything else. So after they came out, I contacted Happy, and we made some arrangements to get everybody that needed them the up-to-date shots to bring them up to date on Hep B's and tetanus and all that kind of stuff.
I know I passed out there and they were power washing
Yeah, it was a
equipment.
3 hour.
Did we lose any equipment?
No, we were able to salvage everything. We did about a 3-hour cleanup to get everything cleaned and back on the truck the way it should have been. The turnout gear, you probably really shouldn't do a power wash because of the covering or coating on it, but it's still usable. And a few years ago, I got what we call a turnout gear extractor on a grant, and that's a special made wash machine for turnout gear to make sure it gets extra clean. So we ran everything through a couple times, make sure it was all clean.
Sanitized.
Yeah.
Right. I heard there was some people lost personal clothing.
Yeah.
A lot.
Volunteers wear whatever we have on tonight. I've got a t-shirt on. It's a fire department t-shirt, but pants, shoes, and everything else, that's all stuff that guys buy on their own. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And then next up will be Community Development Administrator David Bova.
Good evening, everyone. You got my report there.
Fire department's suburban. Does anybody have any questions on, I mean, we already approved it, I guess, with the consent agenda.
Haven't approved it yet. We haven't approved
Well,
it
oh,
yet.
yeah, sorry, I don't know if we maybe have any questions before he leaves. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's right. All good? All right.
Go ahead.
On the historic preservation piece, you can see we've got another meeting coming up next Monday. The grant that we received from the historic preservation grant, we are looking for a house. We've advertised, put it out on social media, but we are looking for a historic wood clapboard house with access, with failing paint, with access from the ground level. So there are entries at City Hall if you want to enter that. Once we verify that any entrants meet the requirements, we'll just have a random drawing and select a house. We end up purchasing all the top coat paint through the grant, but the event, the participants will not paint the entire structure. So they're going to go through and learn how to do it, and then we will leave the paint, and the owner will be responsible to finish painting the house. So just FYI on that in case you get asked. Under building department, you see the numbers there. Our new permitting software continues to come along. We'll be possibly going live with the permitting module in August, and then we move on to land management. So Gina and I are on a weekly call with those folks, and things are moving along fine. Sidewalks, you've probably seen 4 out of the 5 that the city had on the list are complete. The 5th is the aggregate sidewalk along the courthouse, which was started this week. Half of it is now poured. I believe the other half will be finished early next week. Down under city county info, I just wanted to add, and you all probably received this information, but the county's going to hold a town hall event on August 9th at 6:30 out at the Progress Sports Complex. We go to the back. Just under floodplain management, a quick update, and of course it's been severely dry, but current long-range forecast, less than a 50% chance of flooding for the next 3 months, so hopefully we can continue to get through the year, but also get some more rain. And then under sidewalk issues under property maintenance, I've kind of already mentioned it. There's one left that's city-owned, and that's the one that's over by the courthouse, and we'll have that finished next week. Questions?
I hate to jump in here first all the time, but I've had 2 nuisance property complaints this week. Some of them are reoccurring, and you and I have talked in detail about the one, but is there anything else we can do to set some more stricter guidelines? I mean, have we pushed the law to the limit, I guess?
We went through work sessions last year and revamped our definitions.
Right.
Did all that.
Looking for
I
more
think for
if
the
there
folks
is.
that are the frequent flyers, I don't think that if you continue to make it stricter and stricter, it's going to change their behavior. But I continue to check on them and send violation letters, and if they continue to violate, we ticket them and they go to court.
But you feel we've pushed it as far as we can legally?
I do. I feel like if you remember, I examined multiple municipalities around us. We adjusted those definitions. There's limits to what we can do in state statute, and we are probably at that limit. I wish there was a way, state statute-wise, for us to hold frequent flyers more accountable, but there's not.
Raise the fines, or?
The fines are really up to the judge.
I trust you're looking into it.
Every week.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I've got one, and I just got it before I walked in. What's the ordinance on dead trees, dangerous trees? I don't know what the right word would be for.
It would fall
rotting.
under the nuisance vegetation.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we can maybe send them a letter to take care of something. I'll send it to you then. It's actually Ward 1, but I just got it 15 minutes before I got it here, so.
Well, I had one this week also.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, David. We'll move to public comments. Okay, doesn't appear we have any. Take us to tonight's consent agenda.
I think there was a question that Joe had about the,
If anybody was gonna have questions about the Suburban, the fire department
right,
Suburban.
and
We
that
just
is the Suburban that has been totaled.
Yes.
Correct. A motion to approve.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Move to new business. This is a first reading for bill number 4574. This is an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, amending Schedule 3 parking restrictions, Table 3. This is E, handicapped parking.
Move to table
Second.
the reading.
Okay.
Joe, I'd like to understand more about tabling that. Under what condition would it be brought back to the table?
It continues to be a problem.
Well, the homeowner wanted to be here too.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I could see that my objection to Joe tabling is, number one, maybe kicking the can down the road, although if they want to be here, I could support that, but are we just waiting on somebody to misbehave and then, like, we never know when this is going to come back to the table? I think enough of you know my thoughts on
I wish I had a
this.
crystal ball. I can't
Right.
tell you, and I don't want to move on it tonight, so I'm going to table it.
Has-
That's my request.
Has there been some improvement, I guess, in the,
Yes.
well,
But here's my caution to the table, though. Listen to how we're speaking about this. We're talking about somebody improves their behavior, and that guides us considering a bill to become an ordinance. And I don't think that's what this body should be about, but that's just my 2 cents.
I
so
agree.
it's just a matter of bringing it back.
Well,
Are you
what I'm saying,
pass it now or not?
I'm saying we're talking about legislating behavior, and I don't think that's what we should be in the business of doing. That's from this seat only. I could support Joe tabling if everybody buys into that, but I just don't understand what the conditions would be in which we would reconsider Bill 4574.
I mean, I agree, if they wanted to be here, that's important, but we
Agree.
can still bring it back if the situation continues.
But
And
that's the thing, is that we're basing this on a situation. We're
Right.
not basing
Well-
it on a need, and
So
that has
we
been
are
brought up
basing
to.
it, we are
hold on.
basing it on a need.
So let's
Wait.
table it to the next
But-
meeting. If
Right.
things don't change, we're gonna vote on
I'm
it
sorry,
one
I've
way
been
or the
interrupted
other
a
at the
few
next
times.
meeting.
Sorry, I've been interrupted a few times. So I'd like to finish. Going through this, we have seen repeatedly that this is a behavior issue. When people have come to us and they're talking about it, it's a behavior issue. It has not been expressed as a need. I feel like this is a very slippery slope for us to take action on this.
I think it should be based on some ADA compliance or again, some evidence of need for this particular parking. If we're looking at, I think across the board, anytime we're looking at creating law based on a specific person or situation, I think it opens a lot of doors that we don't necessarily want open.
You know, the handicap thing, because it's not a handicap issue and stuff, the problem is we don't have anything else to throw out there to rectify the problem. And I assume, Dave, we've looked into that,
What's that?
that there's no other restriction that we can put on an area other than a handicap parking.
Well, that's a traffic issue, but I don't believe there is.
And this is also a civil issue that neighbors are having.
Right.
Now, to my peers at the table, I mean, I could support Joe because we lose absolutely nothing if we push to the next meeting. We don't lose
Right.
anything, but I think this discussion was necessary because I think everybody knows my position and how my vote will go on that night.
We can't have a bunch of handicap parking spots scattered
Yeah.
around town.
For the
where
purpose of
unnecessary. I
having-
understand, but
Yeah.
did you second his motion to table it? Okay.
I didn't hear that, so.
Yeah, I was
Fair enough.
questioning that too, so that's why I wanted to make sure I was clear that it's already tabled.
Okay, so we want to table the first reading?
Yes.
Okay.
I would call the,
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to table the first reading on this bill, bill number 4574. All in favor?
Hang on, are we tabling it to the next meeting or till the next time that the need to talk
my
about it
motion was
arises?
just the table.
Just a table.
I don't think it has to be specified necessarily.
Mine did
So
not.
whether it's the next meeting or 5 meetings from now, it doesn't make any difference, correct?
How do we bring it back? Go back on the agenda. Okay. So we just need to know about it by the Monday we publish? Okay.
I feel like if we're looking at this as in.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Sorry.
Unless you vote to table it for some extensive period of time, otherwise it can be just brought back and just like any other agenda item, sorry.
I feel like if we are voting on this as a need, then we need to do it. If we're voting on this as a way to solve a civil dispute, then we need to vote.
And
just
Christie, to
be
your
done.
point, I think the more you hear discussion, I think it proves out what we're actually talking about, so
We're in the
productive
middle,
conversation.
we're in the middle of a vote.
Yeah, okay. So I don't think did we get a?
I have a motion and a second.
Okay.
But I didn't get, an all in favor, was
Okay.
anybody opposed to tabling it?
I'm opposed to tabling it.
Okay.
Got it.
So we will table that and keep us posted. Okay. Any other business bring forth? I did want to have one quick discussion. I've had a few constituents reach out, some city residents, and then also just monitoring some Facebook activity and just seeing some back and forth. And I did discuss with Happy. So I'm going to kind of put this out there to the council tonight. There's a few people that have complained about the way that the city is pushing out information. This would be in regards to, like when we were flushing hydrants and water lines, when we, maybe potentially street closures, construction projects that may be underway, and their projected timelines. So the question was, could we consider a text service, a direct text service to anybody that would opt in where they would get that information?
We had that once already.
And he kind of advised me that, and it was so, I guess, as far as the feedback. We didn't really get much feedback as to if anybody was really utilizing it or benefiting from it. So my question to you all would be, one, what is your opinion? And then two, would it be something that you could maybe have some discussions with your constituents to see if this is a worthwhile endeavor, if they would? Now, this could be tourism related as well. This could be events related, public safety. More or less, they could opt into any, that's the understanding that I have, any of these, they could receive alerts based on, if they just want to get street closures, public safety, construction, water line, whatever, they could opt into those. They could leave out tourism. They could do, however, they could manage it themselves as far as what they want, the information they want to receive.
Yeah, I've heard the same complaint or same concern raised. Do we know if there's a cost associated with this? I would assume that, is that per event that we send out?
No, it's a monthly fee.
Okay.
It's the same as any software type setup, yeah. And we'd look at various ones. The one we had, it was difficult to manage. So we finally just let it lapse and really didn't get any feedback of people that were concerned that they weren't getting any texts anymore. So we just have let it ride with just doing Facebook at this point.
I think we just thought the city was being run so well that we didn't receive those texts anymore.
Yeah.
And I guess in the effort to be devil's advocate, how do we advertise to these people to
sign
We
up?
need to send out a text to find out if they want a text.
The old-fashioned way,
Well,
call on the phone.
Yeah.
Obviously, logistically,
Do we
we'd
put
have
it
some
on our
things.
water bill, or-
Yeah, well, and that's probably maybe attached to a water bill of some sort, maybe
Okay.
to give them the option to return the form and opt in.
Do you have rough costs on this?
Not yet, no. We just don't.
This is just very preliminary. We just had this discussion this week, so
I would be in favor of finding
Well,
out.
my thought is, we're looking at redoing the website, and most of those companies also provide this type of service. So it may be where we want to bundle it, and we include that with our website improvement next budget year. So we would start looking at that October 1st.
So if you all could just maybe bend some people's ear about it, just poke around, see what, kind of the feedback is on that. Go ahead.
I think one of the problems with the one we had before, which when you signed up on it, it gave you the option to sign up for, like, let's say Muni Band, if they were gonna change their concert from the desert to the, whatchamacallit, the Performing Arts Center, or street closures and all that stuff. The problem we had before, if I remember correctly, was one person at City Hall was doing everything, and if something happened after 5 o'clock, they weren't there to do it. If there was
A public safety
boil
issue or
water
something.
issue or
Yep,
something like
yep,
that.
yep.
So it still didn't go out till the next morning. And I had proposed back then that the department heads or, there needs to be a way for more people to be able to send that out. And apparently with the system we had, that wasn't an option that we could have done, so.
We could, but it was difficult to get the information in there and then put it out. So it's like, this is too, it was too much for trying to train everybody on how to do it, and it was just a difficult process, not worth retaining. And then we didn't receive any feedback when we stopped. Because we weren't really utilizing it the months before I got here. So it's like, well, if we get some feedback, then maybe we'll continue to, we'll find something else, but never got that feedback.
So I
Yeah, we're getting it
don't
now.
know what MoDOT does, but I know they put these little portable signs up that flash, and they did out on 32 by Dairy Queen, of course, other than they postponed it 3 times, that there's supposed to be work starting, there such a date. Well, it didn't. I don't know, do we have access to?
Those are about $15,000 to $25,000 per unit. We've looked at those at various entities I've been at. So, I mean, that's just a cost you'd have to incur. It's probably cheaper going with a text.
But that's only for people that are technologically advanced.
What about an airplane pulling a banner?
There you go.
We got the airport.
Maybe we get that Greminger to pull it behind his little
Yeah.
airplane.
Pigeons, messenger pigeon.
So maybe if you guys can grab some feedback and then just get back to us and see what you think, and then we can kind of go from there and see if it's worthwhile. I think could be a decent service to have. I know not everybody's on Facebook. I know we assume most people are, but just another way to maybe push information out in real time as well before somebody checks their feed and then, or whatever else. So just a thought.
I would recommend going on unit cost on that for the next meeting.
Okay, cool. Sounds like a plan. Any other business?
Yeah, 2 quick things. Did we, Happy, were you able to talk to the county about the charging stations, about potential other sites for the charging stations?
They do not have any plans.
To go forward with it at all?
Yeah.
So we're kind of on our own then?
Happy, one of the places that I've seen them utilized the most is at hotels, where people are spending the night and they can charge. Have you talked to?
I'm hesitant to use public money on private property.
Point well taken.
Yeah, sorry.
And
I
I was
mean,
in and out with the Zoom meeting last time when this was discussed. So the best recommendation we have at this point is the restrooms on Jefferson, behind the restrooms there.
That's the only spot that I could find that we have access to electric and we have space available that we could have people park.
How much space is required for that?
You probably we want to get a 2-unit charger, so you want 2 parking spaces. It's not a lot, 50-some feet wide, 20-some feet deep. I mean, we could do it here at City Hall, we could do it there. We're trying to, you got the Airbnb, you got the Airbnbs and the B&Bs down on that end of Main Street, which seemed like a potential spot. We just didn't want to put it in at the Welcome Center and then that transfer to the Park Service, and then we aren't able to then, it isn't ours, we're actually giving that away as well. So the county, they've talked about putting one in, or putting several of them in the county parking lot, but they just aren't, they aren't going to move forward with that at this time.
Could we put ours there?
We don't have enough for well, we could talk to the county about doing that, but where they wanted to put it, they were looking at the fast charging, they weren't looking at the overnights.
Okay. We're committed to putting them in at this point, I assume, right?
Well, we've got enough money for the charging stations, we don't have enough for all the electrical work that was going to need to go in to put that in. And I haven't got any other feedback on other spots to try to put them.
So is there anybody around us that has them, any other municipality or?
I think Perryville's trying to put them in. Festus has 2 locations. They're generally along the highways, the interstates, and that was the idea, was to get them where you have you're spaced between certain areas. And they wanted to be able to have that network. So we're a little off that path, but, you know, it's something that we can look at because we have, you know, visitors come in and they're going to be driving electric vehicles as much as anything else. So that's what we talked about doing.
But the slow charging station we talked about was how many dollars? Just to buy the equipment?
$15,000 for the unit itself.
And the quick charging was,
$125,000. Yeah, that was a little.
slow is good.
It was more of an overnight. We would offer it as an overnight or all day kind of possibility. And so I thought the Welcome Center was a good spot because spend your day wandering around, charge your vehicle, and then if you're out of here, or you charge it up, get it ready for the next day.
Have we really heard from anybody that's come into town that they were,
I had one lady, she's just moving to town, and she needed a charger and she couldn't find one.
but she moved here?
She is in the process.
Right.
Trying to find her house. But in the meantime, while she's commuting, she's got to be real careful about how she gets to and from here, and she's got enough charge to get home. So,
Dina would like to have a comment on this.
My office gets this phone call almost like 2-3 times a week about the charging stations. Visitors and residents.
Okay, Ashley?
I'll piggyback off that just to say, so the charging stations are one of those things that if you build it, then they'll come here, right? If you don't have charging stations and they want to stay for a long weekend, they can't come here because they have to drive out of town, have enough juice to drive out of town to charge it up, if they're coming from a long enough distance. So, I mean, do you have to riddle the whole town with them? No, but you need an option, especially as common as they're becoming, so.
could you ask the county if we could, and then find out what the cost of them, maybe we could decide between the park and the county parking spot?
Okay, yeah. I'll get with them.
Maybe we could do a joint venture and
There's no joint
better than
about
both
it
of
at this
us.
point.
I've got one other,
Mike's trucks,
about the
electric.
911
Yeah,
board.
thank you, Dina and Ashley, for that commentary, appreciate it. Go ahead.
I saw on the news that both the ambulance and the county have decided to continue their current payments, and we tabled that.
Do you want to say this for the
Did you
work
see the
session?
work session?
Yeah.
Oh, is it on? Okay, yeah, great, good.
Any other discussion? Okay, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. We'll move into the work session. You want to take a break? Anybody need a break? Call the work session to order. Move to approval of tonight's work session agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. First item on tonight's agenda is St. Genevieve County 911 Board, and I believe Major Shots here to discuss.
Hi, everybody. So I contacted Happy after I went and presented to the EMS board, and he asked me to come back. I don't know if he passed on or not, but the EMS board did approve to continue to fund the 911 dispatching services, just like the county did as well. So I guess I'm back here to answer any questions if anybody has any other questions. The only one comment I will make, I know the last work session, it was talked about how it may appear or feels like a double tax. So EMS has got a half-cent sales tax as well. Taxpayers paying that tax. If you call an ambulance, you're not getting the ambulance for free. You're still paying. So I don't think this is any different than EMS charging for an ambulance call and then collecting sales tax as well. It's to go support the operations of the 911.
Jason, I guess,
Yes, sir.
in kind of that discussion, I mean, because it is a dedicated tax.
Correct.
I mean, is there a possibility this will overfund this, and is there any place in there to address that and stuff, like reducing the tax, or, I mean, how does that, or do we just keep?
I don't believe it's going to overfund it. What we're trying to do is pay the 911 services and pay for the infrastructure of $3.2 million. So once that infrastructure is paid off, that tax is going to go towards the 911 services, and then the support of that for the board, like legal fees and such as that, because when the board's set up, we had to get our own attorney. We have fees right now. If for some reason down the road we would have to hire an employee to administer all that, then that tax money would be going towards that, but we don't anticipate hiring an employee for any time soon because the board can handle all that.
Any other questions?
Our current contract is for this year and next year.
No, we would be including this in our budget for the next fiscal year. And the contract is now null and void with the county because we do not contract with the county for 911 services. We will have to contract with the 911 board. We've discussed that with the county, and they're waiting for, I guess you guys are going to be drafting
So
an
the
agreement?
county has drafted an agreement with us that we're reviewing at that time, or this time.
Okay.
I have an agreement here that our attorney, the 911 attorney, has drafted up for the city to review for the city side.
Okay. If they can send it to me in electronic form, that'd be great.
I can email it to you, but I can give you a hard copy right now as
Okay,
well.
okay. And I'll get it to Mark, and he can review it, and then
Sure.
we can bring it to the board for approval. We have a payment that's due, but we don't have anybody to pay it to yet. An agreement to pay it to anybody, I should say. That would finish up this fiscal year, and then we'll have the next fiscal year, and we would just include that. It would remain as what I'm saying in the budget as it is now.
Happy, I had one person brought a question up to me and stuff. When we talk about overall the St. Genevieve City and the overall St. Genevieve County, where is the most sales tax generated?
Well, I would say the majority is going to be inside city limits. I think we're at 30-some percent, so then the rest of the county is, the rest of the county is going to be 60-some percent. I'll have to look at my numbers again. It's been a while since I've looked at it.
So you're,
What's your, I know I'm asking.
well, say those numbers again, Happy, because you seem like you kind of contradicted.
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm remembering, I think it was like 30-some percent the last time I did the calculation, so it was not over 50, it wasn't the majority of the sales tax, but I don't have that in front of me.
But you were saying 30% you thought was a ballpark figure that's generated in the city.
In the city, right, in the city itself. Then you've got the rest of the county that collects the rest of it.
That's surprising. I'm just wondering where that 70% comes from.
I don't know, I don't have the county's information and
Right.
where they get that, where they generate their sales tax. But again, you're asking me and I don't have the information.
Right, no, I understand. It's just the question got brought up that is one entity or the other.
I don't remember us being over 50% when I did the calculations. So I may be off 10%,
Right, no, that's,
but we're not over that 50% mark.
right. No, I was just looking for a ballpark.
So the question is, do you want us to bring the agreement to the board? And do you want to continue to have that, the amount that we've dedicated to 911 dispatching kept in the budget for, and you'll still be able to consider it when we bring the budget forward to the board, but we would keep it in as a line item expenditure for 2023-24.
So that would be roughly $120,000 commitment
Yeah.
for the year.
I think it's 117.5 or something.
Somewhere around that, yeah.
Okay.
But the question, Jason, was basically, we are prepaying now
So my understanding.
in a sort.
My understanding is with the county contract, the county was paying monthly and city and EMS was paying them quarterly. Was my understanding of the way it was going.
Yes. Yeah, we would pay quarterly. I mean,
The
6.5
amount in
doesn't-
the amount in the structure
Yes.
doesn't change,
Right.
it's more or less
So you pay
where it's
quarterly,
going.
monthly was-
Because this is going straight to the improvements, the infrastructure improvements.
For you guys,
Well,
your
the payments you guys are making would be
Will still
going
be going
towards
for
the
our
911
services.
services.
But correct,
Okay.
but it's
But
more
the
or less
tax-
to
the tax
offset.
that's generated by
They're
the
trying to
sales tax
offset that
is
amount.
going to offset.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, that was, right.
It's to, yeah, it's basically
Yeah,
to
we're still
afford
paying
that
for
capital
our service.
expenditure. Mhm.
Right. We're gonna
Tax is
generate
just
the
helping.
tax dollars are gonna go
Offset
towards the
the
3.2.
improvements that are-
Yeah,
that are
it's
required.
reallocating
Right.
those funds into a different.
Correct.
You said earlier, we don't know who to make that last payment to?
Because they're forming the 911 board, so at that point.
Yeah, we're waiting on the agreement.
So we always contracted with the county, so we never had any say in any
The
911.
county has
Action.
canceled their contract now?
They didn't, when the law passed and they formed the board, that terminated their agreement by statute. It's not that they canceled it, they had to by statute.
Because they had to form a new board,
Correct.
because it's a tax measure.
So the figure you're bringing up for, what was it, 2 million, 2.3 or whatever?
It's estimated to be 3.2 million.
3.2, okay. But that's only, those improvements are all gonna be located in this county.
It's all in St. John County.
That's not for the whole dispatch area that they cover.
It's not for any other county, it's strictly for St. James County. St. Francis County has their own budget for their own infrastructure up there.
Yeah, I had somebody ask me that, and I didn't know the answer for sure, but
Yeah, there was like 10 million overall for all the improvements, and we were 3.2 of that or something?
St. Francis County, I think, was like 4.3, something like that. Ours is 3.2, and I don't know if there's another entity, like, I'm not sure, but I just knew ours too.
So I would move to keep the money in the budget for the 911 services. We have to have dispatching services.
I would too.
Same.
Unless we're gonna text everything out.
There you go.
Okay, we'll just
Okay.
make sure to keep it included.
I'm sorry?
Jason, we'll keep it included, and
Okay.
we'll put it in the budget. We'll work on the agreement. and,
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll pass this down to you, and then I'll email it to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Baker.
Thank you, Jason, appreciate it. Move to work session item number 2.
So I would recommend flipping item 2 and 3, because we have visit widget on our Zoom call, and I'm going to let Lynn take that over and kind of prep it and start that discussion.
Everyone,
Rylan, welcome to St. John. Where are you at right now?
I'm actually in Canada right now, taking care of my 92-year-old grandmother and juggling Visit Widget.
Okay, awesome.
Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So,
Well, before we jump into the demo, I just want to say a few words about Rylan to the folks here. Over the past several months, I want to say Rylan's been very knowledgeable, extremely responsive, and detail-orientated about the product. And I think he's an excellent listener, which is really important in this field. And so it's easy to see why. He's been with Visit Widget for 4 years, and he's worked with over 100 destination marketing organizations, both in the U.S. and abroad. So tonight's demonstration is really going to be short and sweet and to the point. Rylan's going to focus on 3 things. First of all, how the tool works and how it meets the consumer's needs. You have in your packets some of the challenges in tourism with trip planning and the frustrations and all the stats with that, and how easy that's going to make it, which will give us a huge competitive advantage. Also, the advertising and promotional opportunities for the county and the city, of course, and then a little bit about the back end, the analytics, the insights that we're going to be able to get. If we have time for that, you can just briefly touch on that. And then here's the goal. The goal is for you to approve this with an implementation probably in September. And you've got the form here for the agreement, and I'd like to draw your attention to it, which basically says the monthly fees. So we would not be charged until there's a kickoff meeting, okay? And then it goes into the things that are included, the full integration, the push messaging, 2-hour content sync, ads, proximity messaging. So if somebody is within, 10 feet of Ciro's, they might get an ad or an opportunity. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot of flexibility in this agreement. And I've already talked to the maintenance firm, and there's absolutely no issue with the website. We hook this on. It's just that what I need time to put together my marketing campaigns and all my promotional materials. And now that, you guys approved the grant and all of that and make all of that seamless so that I can promote a mobile app and also a trip itinerary planning on our website. And I'm waiting for all that. And if that gets in place, then we're off to the races. Okay. We're ready to go.
I appreciate the introduction, and again, I know everyone's time is very short, so I will be as informative as I possibly can with those 3 bullet points that Ellen had brought up. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see if I can do that. Is that possible?
Sure. Should be.
Okay. It says host disabled participation sharing screen.
Getting there, slowly.
All right, perfect, thank you. All right, so everyone should see the visitor engagement platform. So I thought as those 3 points to go over is to give you guys like a brief introductory to Visit Widget, who we are. And then the second point is basically just kind of highlighting what we found from our destinations or our clients on what they have seen as the visitors' needs are. And then lastly, touching again on the monetization options. So my name is Rylan again. I'm the business development consultant for Visit Widget, and this was a tool that we started building over 8 years ago, and it's specifically designed to enhance the visit planning process, but also to increase the chances that people actually discover premier points of interest and attractions that really showcase the best that a destination has to offer. And we accomplished that by leveraging the smartphone that everyone has attached to their hips these days. Now, we launched Visit Widget officially over 6 years ago, so we're based out of Austin, Texas, and we launched at what's called Texas Association CVB annual event. And in that small time frame, we partnered with over 230 destinations across 35 states, as well as a handful of countrywide instances as well. Now, these destinations, they vary from population sizes as less than 800 to as large as densely populated states like Visit Florida. Now, one of the things that we noticed out of these 200 some clients of ours is that there is a tremendous need for trip planners or multi-day planners, whether it be for families and friends or for travel groups. And we also wanted to accomplish this for destinations to be with the fewest clicks as possible, but also to create an emotional connection to that destination and have a memorable experience. So the way that we've done this is that we've incorporated a trip planner button. It could be a static button, or it could also come in a form of a widget. So if I go over to Fisherman's Wharf here, I refresh the screen, you'll notice that there's an animated widget that comes into play. So when I click on any one of these trip planner buttons, it opens up a modal right in line on our destination sites. And one of the things that I can do as a visitor is I can immediately just click add from the listed view or from the map view, and you'll notice that I've already started my plan. So I did this in less than 2 clicks. A lot of destination websites that I go to, I'm either redirected to a business listing or a new tab or Google Maps, and it just causes a lot of confusion and frustration, and who knows if the visitor actually even made out their trip in the first place. But one of the things I wanted to point out with this Jacksonville client is that they have a particular menu item called experiences. And this works really well, especially for destinations such as yourself that has a lot of history. So you can do history tours, art murals, you can do tours for like beverage trails, food trails, whatever it may be. You can publish these particular tours based on seasonality, or unpublish them based on holidays and things of that nature. You can also incorporate audio content. So you'll notice with Jacksonville, they have some play buttons with it as well. So I'll play one of these now.
Welcome to Jacksonville's Downtown Historical Building Tour.
So the idea here is it allows the visitor to immerse themselves in the experience so they can listen and learn instead of just staring at their phone reading about each attraction. You can also incorporate video content. So this works really well, especially for businesses that want to possibly monetize our platform and, you know, get a little bit more exposure, or you can also do it for that particular tour so you can actually get a little bit more a flavor of that particular itinerary. Also, we do have some destinations that have given us a lot of feedback and say we want this multi-day planning. So as a workaround right now, we have embeddable maps, and then we can do particular itineraries built out specifically just for golfing or historic, and it could be over several days as well. Now, going into monetization, we do have a monetization document, which Tanelin may have already provided. So we do have ad units. So we do have some clients that have interstitially put ad units, like with Travel OK, for internal marketing purposes. So every 6 item, you'll notice that there's one for like 50 ways to celebrate summer. As I continue to scroll down, there's one for 50 free bucket list adventures. So this is another monetization option that businesses could participate in. Another one that we have is with going back to those tours, you can gamify it. So this way you can actually reward visitors based on particular attractions or businesses that you would want them to stop at. So with Southwest Michigan, they actually did a tiered system of 45 stops. Now some destinations, they've done something as small as like 6 stops, but this would also be, you know, businesses would have to be engaged with our client to participate. So they can do this numerous ways. They can do it either through proximity messaging, where a visitor walks by a particular business or establishment, checks in, they automatically get credit. But a lot of our destinations or clients are noticing that some of them will cheat, and they want to do a way where they can actually correlate the marketing efforts back to the expenditure. So this particular one did a tiered system on the rewards that they had picked out. So they did a $15 Maker's Trail gift certificate. So as a visitor, once I completed 10 of the 45 stops, I would get, you know, this gift certificate. Once I went up to 20, I get a shirt, a hoodie, and then a tumbler for 40 stops. And then this client actually had 20,000 check-ins over a series of several months, and they brought in $160,000 in revenue. So as a visitor, I'd be walking into one of these bars. I need to buy a beer or an appetizer. I work with the staff. They give me the code or QR code. So then that way we provide the analytics back to the client to give back to the businesses to say XYZ business, we helped send, you know, 400 to 500 patrons to you guys last month. So all our clients do have what's called an analytics dashboard on the back end. So we can actually see what tours are being added to one's plan. We can give you attribution analytics, so we can see how many times something is being clicked. We can see if ad units are being clicked. We can move them around, so then that way you can actually prioritize one particular attraction or tour over another as well. And then we also, as Tantalyn mentioned, we also have sponsored messaging. So the proximity messaging for challenges is one way, but we also have a way for businesses to communicate back to visitors that have already downloaded the app as well. And we can set this to be like at 50 meters or, whatever would be relevant. So when a visitor walks by, a great steakhouse, they can get a message saying, hey, stop in, get 10% discount, whatever it may be. So we have a client in Oklahoma, when I cross the Red River off I-35, I get a message saying, hey, get a $5 chip on us. So this would be another way. We also have push messaging. So for when you have events going on, you can be strategic with these messages. So we have a client in South Texas that sends out a message to everyone who's ever downloaded the app saying, hey, your beach is calling. We'd love to have you come down here this summer. Or you can be more strategic. So if you have an event coming up tomorrow, you can actually send that message out to be a 50-mile radius or whatever you feel is relevant to bring visitors in for tomorrow's event as well. And then lastly, you'll notice that we have kiosk support. And Tantalyn and I were talking about this earlier this week. So it's my understanding that the National Park Service will be taking over the visitor center. So during the pandemic, we had a lot of destinations that went away from brick and mortar as a more cost-effective measure. They went with kiosk units that can be indoor or outdoor units as well. And these kiosk units, you can incorporate video content to help draw the visitors in. Of course, you can have like a co-op of businesses correlating some type of commercial to bring people into the unit. You can also have a business backdrop, so you can swap out the background as well. So then that way the visitor can just walk up to the unit and just immediately start planning their visit. Now, these units are also set up to have segmented views. So instead of them being inundated with miles upon miles of the area, they can actually just see what's in the area of the kiosk, but they could still venture out and immediately just start adding items straight to their plan as well. And then immediately just share it to their travel group or their family or friends through numerous ways, like a QR code, an email, or text it to themselves as well. And then one of the last components that we have in our offering is augmented reality, and it's a way to put virtual content like historic, or it could be like a film tour over the real world. So you may have heard of Pokemon Go with virtual creatures running around, or people are trying to capture them. We don't necessarily do that, but if you have, like, let's say a historic building that's no longer there and it's now a parking lot, now visitors can take out their app, pull up their camera over where that particular building used to be, and then they can actually see what that historic image was or that person during like the 1800s or wherever it may be. So that's essentially a quick overview of those 3 points. And if there's anything else that I need to cover you can think of, Tantalyn, let me know. I'm open up for some questions.
Okay. Questions, comments? Anybody? Yes.
Why not?
Why not?
In your presentation and stuff, you talked a lot about advertising for businesses. Should the city of St. Genevieve really be advertising for individual businesses in this program?
Should there be pricing?
Advertising.
Oh, advertising.
For them in this service, or is this something the businesses should be paying for themselves?
Like, for example, Lake of the Ozarks, they're doing advertising now, and some of the other venues. I guess what his question is that appropriate, or how do they roll that out?
So most of our destinations really do internal marketing, so they're not trying to monetize the platform. We do have several other destinations that are Chamber of Commerce that wear multiple hats. So obviously they have a tiered system in their member directory where they'll do like a bronze package, a silver, and a gold. And so they'll do things like, okay, this business pays like $10 or $100, whatever it may be. That's between them and the business themselves. And then they can interstitially put those ad units in. From what we've noticed with a lot of visitors, the monetization side of things, that's just, again, it's going to be whatever is going to be the best engagement is going to be through the challenges and the passports. And so for Chambers of Commerce, like we recommend typically to them, hey, you may want to pay like $10 to pay to play type thing in order to participate in a passport or a gamification. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way again, so.
Because you even talked about some of those businesses offering some type of reward program and stuff, so who funds that?
Great question. So one client, we'll just use Rio Doce, New Mexico, because I like what they did when they first launched the challenges and passports. So they partnered with like Jeep Wrangler, an ATV company, an outdoor retailer, and instead of like responding to every single visitor for once they've completed that particular challenge, they did a raffle drawing. So you can get really creative with these gamifications of the passports on, you know, whoever wants to participate. So that drove a lot of downloads for the community. So that became a huge marketing arm for future challenges. And then also we have flexible pricing. So as Tanner mentioned, not only do we not charge until everything goes live, we also offer the ability to implement these particular features at strategic times during the season of the year. So if you have a high traffic season or month, we can turn the challenges on like Rio Doce does it 1 month out of the year, which is October, and then they drop back down to our basic plan in November.
Those proximity ads are being paid for by the businesses, correct?
What was that, I'm sorry?
Those proximity ads, those are being paid by the business?
The ad units that you see are actually paid by the nonprofit entities. So like I said, with Travel Oklahoma, they're just doing for internal marketing purposes. They have not monetized it, but our platform is designed to do that if so our client wished to do something like that with the business. And again, that would just be a pricing model between our client and the business themselves. We're just going off our base platform.
It'd be internal, or it would have to be, you know, the board that decides how we want to do that, or, you know, we bring it to the board to say, here's how we break this out with each business. But they would have to offer some sort of incentive. It's up to them to incorporate that.
You know, because what I took, we were basing this off of was the historical value, you know, of our area and stuff, and that was our main focus. It seems like we're getting away from that somewhat and going more towards the retail side is my question.
Well, you could have it to where, you know, you visit the historic, if you do a historic trail. So, you know, you could visit all the historic homes and then you could get a reward for that. So it's really as creative as you want to be.
And I hope you don't think by my questions I'm negative. I just like to know what we're getting into, you know.
No, I appreciate it, because a lot of boards that we sit in on or present, they're very quiet. So I appreciate it because it shows that there's engagement. So I do like that.
You know, and one more question just for this particular instant, because I may have more, but, you know, you talked about Jacksonville, which is a much bigger market than us. How much research have you really done, and how much results do you have for smaller markets like us that are heavy into history?
Right. That's a common question that we get, and our best response to that is regardless of how large the destination is, it's how well that the destination markets their app and uses the, you know, the platform itself. So, you know, we prep and we go over like the top 10 best practices on being successful, especially when it comes to an app. So one of the things that we have is like a smart app banner. So when anyone comes from a mobile device, we provide our destinations what's called a smart app banner. So it immediately detects that there's an app available. So that's another marketing element there. We've helped destinations come up with bookmarks that have college campuses. We've worked with destinations on building out templates for billboards. We have key cards for hotels. So when a visitor checks into their hotel, they can just scan the QR code, download the app, get the most out of the visit while they're staying there. So there's numerous ways that we just don't like sit back and say, you know, here's all this marketing information. We're working with, you know, our clients, and we also provide a dedicated account manager to all our destinations. So our response time is typically within 5 minutes, but we guarantee a 1 hour response time as well.
And I'd like to make a comment on that. So with the Airbnbs, you know, one of the things that they've asked for or bubbled up is that, you know, if we could have all the calendar events and all the attractions and things like that in a folder, well, that's very expensive because it has to be printed and it's in color, you know. So to your point, if you go to all the 135 Airbnbs in the county and the city, and you know they co-promote the app, it's all right there, you know. And they also, you know, they can get on their computers if they're kind of doing work plus, you know, they're doing vacation. So it's, yeah, it's all right there.
We word it as it's a constant digital brochure for destinations that's constantly updated in one's pocket. Because a lot of times, yes, there are small destinations like Pagosa Springs where the population is less than 5,000. And when I was talking to them, you know, they're spending thousands of dollars in print. Now, we're not saying that we're going to do away with print completely for any destination, but it definitely cuts the cost down on that marketing element for destinations as well.
Right, and the other part is that, you know, we're gonna, for example, with the middle baseline plan, you know, you're gonna have 2 hours of syncing. So if somebody, you know, I don't know, well, we had somebody here locally, they had a death in the family and they had to close their shop for a couple of days. Well, all of a sudden, you know, that can be updated and, you know, when people come into town and they see it's closed, or if they're looking, you know, oh, they can see, oh, well, let's go to a different coffee shop or something. So, yeah.
So still back to my question, smaller markets as compared to, you know, bigger markets and stuff. Do you have any statistics that tell us it works better in smaller markets, bigger markets, medium markets?
Again, it's going to go back to the success of how well the destination and the team is marketing it. You know, not to inflate Tantalin here, but she is probably the most active and proactive destination I've ever spoke to out of the 200 clients that we have. And I think that she is going to be very successful if, you know, you guys decide to move forward and visit Widget, because it's not just a one-way thing where it's all on the product and it's supposed to be like, you know, set it and forget it. It does take a little bit of the client's work on how well they market it themselves. That's why I'm not trying to shy away from the question, as I'm just trying to answer it the best as possible, because it is a common question, but it's always going to come down to how well does the destination use our platform at the end of the day.
Right, and then I'd also like to add this, and that is the research. So in your packets, you know, I refer, that's just one piece of information about, you know, how frustrated people are that they will actually avoid a new destination. You know, consumers have so many choices, and, you know, they're going to avoid new destinations, and even some of the ones that they've been to, you know, they'll say, it was too much time. I mean, 30% of, you know, families that are trying to figure out where do we go, you know, where we have, you know, where do we meet and how do we make everybody happy? We've got little kids and older people and teenagers, and, you know, how do we plan the itinerary? So then what they do is they end up opting out to do something that they've always done because they're afraid to try something new. And this takes it all away. It empowers them. That's really, to me, the bottom line. It's really about the consumer. If we focus on the consumer, this meets their needs emotionally, strategically, and they use it, and we make it easy for them to use, I don't think there's any doubt.
So does Visit Widget advertise for St. Genevieve, or do they have to come to St. Genevieve?
You would have to get on the website. You have to have an access point for people to locate it.
And that is Visit Widget's website?
No, it's going to be our website.
It'll be on
And it would
ours.
work as an application on that or a plug-in on the website. So our part is marketing to get people to the website, and then that would be where they would connect to it and be able to plan the trip.
And it's pretty exciting because, you know, St. John has an opportunity to be kind of a leader in that. The other thing is you can go to the Google Store or Apple, and that's where you get the app, just like you would with anything else. You know, you have banks that have mobile apps.
With the website, you know, the trip planner is more for pre-planning phase, right?
Yeah.
As where when you have an app or when you have your phone on you, you're trying to get the most out of your experience. So a lot of times what people are doing is 3 out of 4 times a day, we get hungry. So we're either Googling something, but if you have that app, which is the prime real estate on one's phone, now you have everything in one's pocket. So now you can get the most out of, you know, where to eat, where to stay, what tours are there, because the destination is taking the decision fatigue out of the visitor, because now you have recommended itineraries right there in experiences or tours. And then you've also incorporated the video content right in their phone. A lot of times once a visitor has gone to a website and planned out their trip, very rarely are they looking at that destination's website again from their phone. They're they're already explored everything. But if you have that app, now you can communicate back to them as well.
Right. One of the things that I really like is how you can very quickly go from walking to driving, you know, because I mean, a lot of times, even when I came here, I just thought things were so much farther away. I didn't realize how close they were within walking distance, you know. And so it's great to be able to actually get directions on the mobile phone. You know, you are, I don't know, 50 feet away from, you know, this particular thing. Or if you want to look at, you know, going out to the wineries, well, then all of a sudden you kind of know, oh, that's, you know, that's 20 minutes away. So when you're planning your trip, you kind of say, well, we'll go in town and eat and so forth, and then maybe towards the end of the day, we'll go out and, you know, have a nice glass of wine or whatever. I just, yeah, to me, and I do some traveling, I just think it takes all the, what are we going to do? Where, you know, can I?
Do you mind if I add something?
Yeah.
Just from an economic development standpoint, we want more businesses, we want buildings occupied because they're better cared for. You know, when we bring tourists to town, and we were talking earlier, Bob, about the historic aspect, the museums, if I'm coming to town, whether I'm a potential business owner or a tourist, to go to the homes, to go to the museum, and I'm hungry, it's pretty handy. We're not advertising for them per se, but if you have that phone, you have that app, you have that map right in front of you, it tells you here's the 6 restaurants that are within 10 minutes. Or here's the 6 stores that are within 10 minutes because I want to buy, I don't know, chips to go to my Airbnb tonight because I don't want to have to go out. It has it all right there. If they want to upgrade and advertise, they can.
That's just an option I threw out because, you know, it's something that, it's just an option. You know, the festivals could all promote themselves, you know, say, okay, we're going to use, I don't know, our money's towards this. It's just an option. Again, it's all in the flexibility. But thanks, Dave. Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's not like it'd be a wasted investment if they're spending money at those businesses, we're getting tax revenue from it. So it's, I mean.
I don't know how you could promote this town without promoting the businesses that operate within the city limits.
And it's a tool
even
to
in the
lure
county.
more business.
We have to promote everybody. Our job is to get people into town and get them going places.
Right.
And this helps to organize that.
Yeah, if they feel confident, again, back to the research. If the you know, consumer feels confident, this is a good plan, they can share it with their family, they can change it on the fly and so forth. Yeah, they're going to come here. Like, oh, I know exactly what we're planning on doing. Oh, we posted it on Facebook and all the girls are like, yeah, that's definitely the plan we want to do. Or the tour group, whatever. It's just, and then they get here, if they want to change their mind, it's all right there.
You know, again, I want to reiterate the thing, just because I'm asking questions, I'm not being negative, but I can tell by your facial expressions, you're taking some offense to things, but, you know, just trying to get a full understanding. Now you talked about local participation, you know, so who's going to do that? Happy?
Mobile participation?
No, you talked about someone locally here has to be on this program, basically keeping it updated and...
No, they do it all.
No, so what Tamlin was mentioning earlier about the 2 hours, the crux of our solution, we wouldn't be where we're at if we created duplicate work for our destinations or our clients. So it's our system has an importer that runs every 2 hours to see if, you know, Tamlin did something to the website, you know, add an event or attraction. She doesn't have to go onto an app. She doesn't have to go into the widget and update that in multiple places. It's automatically updating it on its own. So she can just keep working on her website and everything will flow dynamically into the widget, into the apps, and even in the kiosk if that was something you guys pursued later on as well.
So you would have a lot of participation in it.
Indirectly, but yes.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, but we do it now because we update the website.
Right.
And we keep track of the businesses and hours and that, yeah.
Just trying to get an understanding of what the whole program is.
Right, and the great thing is, you know, if you're sold out, like, for example, I was talking to, you know, Dina, and I've got right now on the Welcome Center auto, you know, attendant, I have all about, you know, the bands, the cover bands, and she's like, oh, we're sold out. We just sold out. And I said, well, I better take that down. So what I'm saying is if anything happens within 2 hours, you know, the whole site is gonna be updated and the mobile app too. It's pretty good, so. What's that? Okay, well, and the analytics, we didn't get into the analytics, this is really kind of where I like to live, is, you know, the insight that you get, understanding behavior, and that's where you could adjust your programs, your campaigns, your spend, and you've got all the data to make sense, instead of guessing, oh, I don't know why that didn't work.
Yeah, our platform will show, you know, how many times a visitor has viewed a particular attraction or tour or event, but what's really important is, did the visitor actually add that to their plan? So that's how the analytics dashboard would help Tanlin to actually look at where she wants to move the tours around so it gets more exposure and gets more people drawn into your destination as well.
Okay.
I appreciate you taking time to answer all my questions.
Yes, Ryland.
You're welcome.
It's probably nice and cool up in
It's like,
Canada.
they're good questions.
Yes. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys allowing, you know, to deep dive into this. It's really nice of you.
Thanks for coordinating, Talon.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that while we're on it? We will move on to now agenda item number 3, which would be Cochrane Stormwater Review.
So I guess an option for the board. I think we can cover tonight with a handout, but I do have the screen and projector here. If you'd like me to take a few minutes to get it set up, it's your preference.
Let's start with a handout, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Harbor.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Nope, center.
I don't know if this is procedure, but I am looking for a thumbs up approval from tonight, conceptually, right?
Conceptually, that means if we get an agreement, it would come to this board for approval.
Right.
Right, so you'll see that in the future.
We won't see it tonight?
No.
It's a work session.
Okay. All right. I
No,
don't know.
sorry.
Okay, so does everybody have a handout? Okay. So just kind of following up, we've been kind of working through
several different drainage areas. We had previously discussed what we had designated as drainage areas 1, 2, and 3. So tonight we'll be talking about drainage areas 4 and 5. You know, before we dive into this, I will say I do feel like the analysis we did in drainage areas 1, 2, and 3 kind of led to the identification of some improvements that were needed. And I felt less like we saw that in drainage areas 4 and 5, which is kind of more of an analysis of those areas. There are some recommendations, but I felt the recommendations were less significant. So starting with drainage area 4, this is the area on the north side of town. I believe the primary area of concern of flooding in this section is at Washington Street and 2nd Street. This area is protected by North Gabourey Creek from a levee that's been constructed. And just in general, when the creek rises, there's a potential for water to get trapped on the dry side of the levee, which in turn leads to flooding. This area we have highlighted in red, that is about 55 acres. So it's relatively small drainage area compared to some of the others we've been talking about, but it is approximately 55 acres. If you'll flip to the next slide, you'll see that same drainage area is shown, just with a little more detail, some of what's going on in the area. When we talk about the drainage area being 55 acres, that 55 acres is tributary to a 48-inch culvert that goes under the levee and then into North Gabourey Creek. So I think what you're dealing with here is a pretty, I feel like it's a pretty standard situation in areas that are protected by levees. Having a culvert through the levee with a flap valve on the end, it certainly works until the water level in the creek gets higher than the dry side of the levee. Then there's nowhere for the water to drain out to. So when this initially came up, one of my thoughts was we have some other communities that we work with who have water pumps that they can hook onto the PTOs of their tractors. So that same equipment can be used, and they buy a relatively inexpensive pump. But we would be looking at pumping equipment that can pump 1,500 to 2,000 gallons a minute here. Now, in talking with Steve, it sounds like in the past he's got diesel-powered pumps out there and used those to pump across the levee. So the city's already taken kind of what we would see as probably really your only solution. Seems cost prohibitive in this situation to try to put in permanent pumping equipment. That's certainly something you could look at, but that feels a little bit like overkill for this particular area that we're talking about. If you'll flip to the next slide, again, this is just kind of a little bit more detail on the culvert that goes through the levee. The lower left-hand corner, that picture is the inlet of the 48-inch culvert, and then you'll see we're pointing up into the image as to where that is located. And then the upper right-hand corner, that's the culvert as it discharges into the creek. And you'll see in that picture that what you see on the end of the pipe is a metal flap gate. So the intent of that is to keep water when the creek comes up. The intent is to keep water from flowing backwards through the pipe. Pretty common installation there. You will see on the following slide just something to consider here. This is a levee project that we had done previously, and this is looking at I'll call it the wet side of the levee that we're trying to where we'd expect flood waters to be up against the levee. What you see on the end of that pipe is called a duckbill check valve. Just a different style of check valve than what you have. Would likely provide a better seal and do a better job of preventing water from backing up through that culvert and into the area that you're trying to protect. So I don't, I suspect Public Works and the officials probably have some local knowledge of whether or not that is an issue. But if that is identified as an issue during flooding, that flap gate isn't sealing well, I think this would be something to consider.
The flap gate hasn't been the issue. The issue is that the creek will rise, the gate stays shut because of the pressure in the creek. And so the water's gathering at Second and Washington and just sits there and has nowhere to go. And then begins to fill up towards the other streets, and we'll have to close it for a couple of hours until water levels go down. So if there's a way for that water to continue to flow, would be the premium type, and that's been brought up before, is the pump, trying to pump that water over the levee, but again, the cost is so expensive.
Right.
And then getting the equipment up there can be difficult because you're on the levee during a rainstorm, which can then have soft ground and bump into other issues.
Sure. And from talking with Steve, he kind of described that you see issues during flash flooding, as well as when you're dealing with backwater in the creek. But that's been a problem in instances also. So there are kind of two different conditions you're dealing with. There's one being a flash flood situation, the other when the Mississippi River's high, and it all backs up through the creek also.
So something like adding a different culvert pipe at a different elevation would.
No, so what's going to happen is the water level is going to try to equalize on both sides of the levee. So as long as there's a pipe connecting one side of the levee to the other, they're going to try to equalize, and nothing's going to drain out of the dry side of the levee until the creek falls far enough that it can push water through the culvert.
Well, I meant for like Happy talked about in the flash flood situation, there's a buildup of water right there on 2nd Street. pretty good amount of water builds up there, would an additional pipe or something help get that out of there or not?
So, not having seen that firsthand, I'm certainly interested in input, but my understanding was there's, so probably appropriate, just flip to the next page here and you'll see a picture of the intersection, the area that floods, Second and Washington. And between the red and white building, there's a ditch that runs between those two. My understanding was the water essentially just backs up from the levee up this ditch, and this just kind of being the low spot of the area, this is where the water collects and pools first. If I'm correct, and that's indeed what's happening, putting more piping in the ground and trying to put a storm inlets in this area is not going to have any effect because there's nowhere for the water to go.
Anything like a pipe on top of the existing pipe because of
Well,
elevation or another
Something to
lateral?
eliminate that amount of water, because it's the water that's draining from in this 55 acres that's causing the problem and stuff anyway, other than pumping to get that water out of there, because this does become a pretty hot topic on social media when it floods.
Yeah.
But to get that water out, that's why that pipe's at the elevation that it is, going into the creek where it is. I mean, if you just can't, the water won't be able to get out, so it has to then seek its own level, and that's what it's ending up doing. So putting another pipe in there would do the same thing, because you just need it at that level again.
It might save some, but probably not enough.
So, and I think, I think what you're doing now is a good approach. If it were requested, we could certainly try to put together some more detailed information and what pricing would look like on permanent pumping station. But again, that felt, just wasn't sure if that was appropriate for the situation we have here.
Except when your property's getting flooded.
Sure, and I don't say that lightly. I understand that exactly what you just said. When you're the person whose property is flooding, it's maybe it wouldn't feel like overkill, but
I think an estimate on the cost is something to have in file at least.
Okay.
And know what that is.
I just know firsthand that picture on the left of the corner, I've been standing on those steps, and I've seen it come up 2 or 3 steps, on that lower landing. That's not a pleasant feeling.
the white and blue house on the left there? Is that
Yes.
the one you're, okay, couple steps up onto there.
I guess I would want to be assured that that pipe, is at the proper elevation, I guess, too, to do the maximum, job and stuff that it can, or the size.
Sure. So, and I guess another way to think of it, and, you kind of asked if there'd be multiple pipes. There has to be a pipe at the bottom of the levee so that we're not creating a lake there.
Right.
If there wasn't a pipe at the bottom of the levee, that would essentially act as a dam and create a lake. Putting a pipe up higher, again, both sides of the levee, the water's going to try to equalize. So that's not going to change. That's not going to change how much water can drain through the lower pipe, adding an upper pipe in.
I mean, how are you determining that the water level will be the same on both sides? We're talking about this area that's 55 acres draining through this culvert pipe. How are we assuming that water level is the same on the other side? Because we don't know that drainage area, or...
Well, we know that back pressure closes that valve, so that's the level.
And that pipe is at an angle.
Right.
So it's always going to be at that level or higher. So it's always going to close that valve.
And the fact also, I think you touched on the fact that sometimes those flapper things can malfunction. That's why I wondered if a second pipe wouldn't be beneficial too. If one clogs, maybe the other one would stay open, or...
Yeah, As I'm standing here, my initial thought is that a second pipe's not gonna provide any benefit, but let me put some more thought into that and see if there's something to that we can come up with a way where that would help.
I always think more is better.
And I guess to kind of also answer your question, so we did not do a full detailed hydraulic analysis of North Gabourey Creek to try to determine under what storm events, what elevations the water in that creek would be at. These recommendations are more based on just discussions and what the city's observed and when the flooding occurs. And the flooding has been a problem when the flooding in this drainage area at 2nd and Washington has been a problem when the water level's high in North Gabourey Creek.
But is that part of our agreement to further that study?
How much more detail would you like? That's.
I think certainly providing the cost estimate for what a pump station would cost. That's certainly within reason.
But that's what you've done in other areas like this, is possibly put in a pump station?
I wouldn't say in areas like this. I think in larger scale areas, larger areas where this condition would exist, I think that would be what would be looked at. But I wouldn't say that in situations similar to this that we've done stormwater pump stations. Well, we can certainly come back to drainage area 4 if there's more questions, but if there's not right now, we could move over into drainage area 5. So this is a little bit of a continuation of the conversation we had regarding the culvert under Highway 32 next to Bank of Bloomsdale. And one of the concerns there is something that Happy specifically asked me to address was, once we improve that culvert and stormwater can flow freely under Highway 32, goes through the ditch and then gets to the next box culvert at Subway, have we just moved the problem? So that is part of the analysis that we'll discuss here. I think in general it was just kind of a general, asked to take a general look at this, and again, any specific local knowledge would certainly be appreciated. But the drainage area we're looking at here, it's we have it shown as the north boundary being Point Base, kind of Point Base to Highway 61, Parkwood to the west, and then Oak Drive to the south. In the proposal we provided, that's kind of the drainage area that was outlined. Really what we're dealing with here is there's about 200 acres, and it's most of the south part of town that comes to this point. We'll look at that some more in a little bit, and everything we're talking about drains to a sinkhole just on the north side of Oakwood Drive. So kind of a fairly unique situation. We see that fairly commonly in the Springfield area. A lot of sinkholes and karst topography in that part of the state. So you're in a similar situation to other communities over there. So as I said, really what we're dealing with here is a 200-acre drainage area that comes to this point, and it encompasses some of the previous drainage areas we talked about. But if you flip to the next slide, you see kind of a complete boundary of the area that drains to this sinkhole. You'll see at the north, you're at a ridge that runs along Cedar Lane, and over along the highway on the west, and Rosier Street on the east. And again, this encompasses the drainage area that we were talking about last time with the culvert under Highway 32. So this all kind of ties together, and these two kind of go together with our last conversation. To jump to the next slide, just kind of give you some more detail on the areas that we're talking about. And again, we just kind of tried to provide some more detail, some more information on the area. Kind of everything comes together just south of Point Base Drive. In the upper left-hand corner, you see there's a 48-inch concrete culvert that dumps into the wooded area to the south of Point Base Drive, and the swale that runs between these properties. In the upper right-hand corner, you see a large box culvert that we talked about previously. That box culvert's about 5 feet tall and 6 foot wide, so it's a pretty significant structure. Lower right-hand corner, you just see a picture. This is looking down the ditch from Point Base Drive. Just the general characteristics of what you see there. And then kind of interesting is lower left-hand corner, this is actually the sinkhole that all this water goes into. So I've never been back there to see that. It's kind of interesting. There's a pretty well prepared bar grate over it to try to, I assume that's for safety as well as keeping debris and trash out. So just kind of an overview of what we see there. The 5x6 box culvert, there are no capacity issues there when we do the improvements under Highway 32. It appears that culvert was properly designed and was just really they looked at the entire drainage area, not specifically what could come under Highway 32. Easily handles the 25-year and the 50-year storm. You would see some backwater on the 100-year event, but that would be typical for that type of drainage structure. Just some suggestions here, and the question comes up sometimes: well, how much water can we dump into the sinkhole? And I think a typical approach to that is what you have now is working, and you should strive not to put more into it. And what that would mean is, as development occurs, requiring stormwater detention, and that they don't increase the runoff rate above what the pre-developed condition would be. And I think that's, I know in some instances that has occurred in the drainage basin. I believe there's a pretty large underground detention structure behind Tractor Supply. There's several large metal pipes underground there that form essentially a detention basin that has the same effect as the above ground detention basins that you see around town. You do the same thing below ground. So I'd make sure that that is something the city will continue to enforce, but I think that'll be important in this specific drainage area. We don't have any information of localized flooding that occurs in the lower part of this drainage area that we were asked to do a detailed evaluation on. And again, I think I'd kind of ask if there's any questions or anything that the board wishes to be evaluated that wasn't looked at as part of this.
Are there any choke points or issues that run in that drainage area and the hydraulic area?
The
thing that was brought up from your team when they looked at it?
No. I guess the short answer there is no. You're talking about the storm sewer network as well as the swale and just everything that discharges to it.
Yeah.
Nothing was identified as being a choke point. And again, a lot of that information would come from areas where poor drainage is observed. We have tried to get down here during some rain events. In some areas we've had better luck than that with others. But nothing of concern that needed to be upgraded in this area was identified.
Like on drainage area 1, we had some driveways and culverts that were undersized, so I didn't know if there was anything that you saw on this.
Yeah, I think some, and this isn't, this isn't, new development, but I think it's quite a bit newer than the area we're looking at is quite a bit newer, than what we're looking at in drainage area 1. So I think that's probably some of what you're seeing here, is there probably was, it seems that there was more design that went into the storm sewer system than some of the previous areas that we were looking at. If there's any specific areas or specific streets that or addresses where issues have been observed, we'd be certainly can take a closer look at those spots.
I think that part of that question was, can the sinkhole take it? I don't know if there's any other issues in the subdivisions that are around there that anybody has said that they see a problem. I know it backs up, and you know that area fills up, that the ditch will fill up if it's a heavy rain, but it seems like it stayed away pretty well from any of the homes.
Yeah, in general, it feels like there'd have to be a pretty significant buildup of water in the channel before you came close to getting into any of the homes. The homes sit quite a bit higher than the channel that runs through there.
Okay.
Talking about in this earlier drainage area and this metal culvert, that was a 48-inch metal culvert pipe?
Yes, sir.
So that's draining 55 acres, but then yet we've got 200 acres here basically draining in the same size pipe?
So that, so the 48-inch pipe, I'm not going to be able to tell you how many acres that picks up, but it primarily is coming, the 48-inch culvert that dumps in is serving the area to the west of this this drainage area we're talking about. So it collects water from the commercial development, so Tractor Supply and the remainder of that development, the commercial development to the south, and then I believe those are apartment buildings heading south on Parkwood. So that serves those areas through there. The other thing to remember is the rear and the building of the Tractor Supply development, that does include stormwater detention. So
I think there's like a 10,000 gallon tank under there is what I've been told, but it's primarily roof runoff and some parking lot runoff, but I don't think it drains the whole parking lot.
Correct. It's the roof and the rear of the building.
Right.
But the intention of that design would have been that development doesn't discharge more than what it does when it's grass. So that needs to be kept in mind when we're talking about how much flow comes off that development when compared to the first area we're looking at. Probably you would say there's less development there, but there's also no form of stormwater detention in that drainage area.
So that's a different,
And kind of
that's hydrology.
looking a little further and stuff, looking at that sinkhole, and you talk about as long as you don't put any more water in that area. If you look at, I guess your last slide here, and you see the football field and you see the baseball field, we're talking about a development right out from Parkwood and a little further up from Bosler Drive. We're talking about 50 acres of residential development there.
Yeah, but I think that's going to drain towards Progress Parkway.
They have to have stormwater retention.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Yeah,
to, that's
part
gonna
of
be
the subdivision requirements.
Any new development has to have a stormwater.
but we will
But
be.
still, if you detent the stormwater there, it's going to end up out somewhere.
It does, but it shouldn't run faster than what it runs now on the grass.
Right.
So I think that's key. That's a key variable you just mentioned. Like, we could talk gallons all day long.
Right.
It's the speed.
Well, my point here is as we talk about further studies here and stuff, we need to take that into consideration. I mean, sure, if we put in a subdivision there and we're talking about water coming off of that, and we're talking about water being, you know, retained for a while, there's still going to be water coming out of there, you know, after every rain.
Right, and they'll have to meet the qualifications or the requirements that are in our stormwater ordinance. So there'll be detention, there'll be 1 or 2 detention basins at minimum to capture it, depending upon the areas that would be in that subdivision.
And I guess based on the study, this drainage is not for that area would not drain to this area that we're talking about.
Right.
I beg to differ from you there.
Well, I mean, that's what he's identified based on the map, I guess, is the.
And any more so than it does now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll
Right.
displace some water, obviously, but then
Right.
we'll have to deal with that with the plan for the new development.
Right.
So you still have a stormwater plan for the other side of Oakwood. So that's a separate review of the hydrology in that area. So Smith and Company is doing that because they're doing the subdivision.
I think you're both kind of right on whether we're talking about this all drains to the same area or not. I guess if you go out there, I think technically it looks like there's 2 sinkholes, one on each side of Oakwood.
Yep.
I think certainly once you get much below ground, this all comes together, you know, would be, you know, going into the same underground caverns or whatever is underground. And my understanding from what I've heard is if you go in there's caverns that a person can walk through, and it's a pretty large opening in area. So I mean, I think that kind of helps reinforce the idea that this can take on quite a bit of water.
It just seems like to me there's even, you know, more water coming down that ditch or whatever you want to call it. It's even on our 49 acres. As watching water come down through there, because it goes all the way up to, you know, the road going through there and stuff. And I'm just wondering if, you know, where was that all going to be incorporated into whose study?
So
Well, that would be part of the design that Smith and Company's working on.
So there's 2 parts to that. One's going to be the subdivision design, which would have stormwater included with that. But they're also doing a hydrology study for us, same thing as what Cochrane was doing.
Right.
Instead of doubling up on that information, it's like, well, let's have them do it. And they graciously said, okay, that's fine. We'll let them do that study for you.
So again, kind of as I started off, and I did feel like the first 3 drainage areas we looked at had, I think those 3 drainage areas certainly had more identifiable or more previously identified flooding issues that have been occurring. And in these two cases, certainly drainage area 5, there is a flooding issue there, and didn't feel like there was really any specific issues identified for drainage area 6.
4 and 5.
I'm sorry, I got one out of you.
Yeah.
You're right, 4 and 5, yes.
Say, hopefully we'll put some of those.
Dave, is there any possibility on 4 of any sort of near the inlet retention, with the inlet kind of being the outlet? For retention on the back side of this culvert?
So on this side of the levee then.
Correct.
Yeah,
This side of the levee
yeah.
retained, and then the existing culvert would kind of be the outlet at the top of the retention.
I think we've still got the same problem, that if the creek is high, water can't go from one side of the levee to the other to get into the creek.
I'm talking about basically a retention pond, so we'd have to, I mean, I know it's
We
not
can
there
drain it off the road where it'll retain there until the creek goes down with it.
Mechanically, we'd have to get it out of there though, right? I mean, still.
Once you're,
Well, it would have to sit there, it'd be,
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it won't drain out of the culvert pipe, it wouldn't drain out of retention lower.
Yeah, once you do anything below the flow line of the creek on the dry side of the levee, I think as you guys are just saying, the only way you ever get that water out there is to pump it out. Just with the topography of the area, I think it would be challenging to build a large enough retention pond or dry basin that could hold enough water to allow you to achieve this. And again, typically what you're seeing is on a detention basin, it still releases all the water. It just releases it slower. If water can't go from the dry side of the levee to the creek, then you've just flooded it slowly instead of quickly. It's almost
I was thinking of a wet basin. I know we've talked about not liking that, but that water could sit there instead of second washing.
But you'd still have to mechanically pump it over
Or it
out.
would just be a wet, it would have to, once it got up to the level of the culvert, it would go out until,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So what is the route of this water once it comes through this flapper? You know, because eventually it's got to get down to the pump station.
It just follows North Gallery Creek.
Yeah, it goes right into the
Just a-
creek.
Yeah, so under Main Street and then meets up with South Gabourey and heads out to Mississippi through the gates.
So we haven't identified if there's a problem from the time it leaves this culvert all the way down to the creek.
I guess I'm trying to think of what type of problem. So in the instance of a flash flood, the creek rises just because of the amount of water that drains into it. And that would have very little to do with the downstream conditions. I suppose there could be a restriction downstream that causes the creek to raise more than if there wasn't a restriction. Under the conditions of backwater, it would be from the level of the Mississippi River being high, and kind of just the same situation, that if the Mississippi River's high, North Gabourey Creek can't drain by gravity to the Mississippi River side of the levee.
Right, that's when the pumps kick on and take it over. But I was just wondering, is from, you know, this flapper here all the way down to where it drains into the creek, you know, and I guess the creek handles it somewhat, but just wondering if there was any restrictions along there.
We can take a look at that also. I don't think there's something downstream that's contributing to what you're seeing here. Is there a local feel as to whether the flooding that's experienced here is more of a flash flood versus a backwater issue?
It's flash.
It's flash flooding?
Flash flood.
It's flash flood, yeah.
So,
The restriction I think of would be the North Gabourey Bridge. It's main, but that's it, that's the only thing that's in the way.
But it always occurs when there's a heavy rain, whether it's the event rains we've had, or even some that are, you know, heavy or long, and we get a lot of rain, the creek will fill up, and that'll back up. It just doesn't back up as much on the smaller rains.
It just backs up there on 2nd Street, but you don't see it backing up on Main Street.
Right. No.
Right. That's why I was wondering if there was some
Yeah, no, I don't, no.
some way there for the water not getting out of there.
No, Main Street, it's gonna be down South Gabourey. That's where we got the issues there.
I didn't get any of that.
Probably snatched it.
well, similar to last time, there's questions and a few follow-up items here. Appreciate your time tonight. Is there any additional questions, or there's a few more things you'd like looked at, and we'll certainly.
Yeah, well, I'd just like
look
the
at those.
contact information, so if we hook up
got it out so I wouldn't forget, and I forgot.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Perfect.
Got some things to bring back. We'll wait for that.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
That'll take us to work session item number 4, and that is potential no parking on Jefferson Street. I think there's some photos in your packet as well.
Yeah, so there was kind of putting them all together and trying to describe where I took those pictures and how working our way up the street. So you're at the corner to start with, picture 1, picture 2, working our way down the sidewalk. There's still parking there's parking spaces listed on the Valley School side. The sidewalk, which is in bad shape, used to be a drive, used to be an inlet, it looked like ingress, egress. But, you know, technically, they're gonna have cars parked there. But you work your way up, you can see where the driveway is on picture 3. Picture 4 is at the edge where you can see the elevated desert parking lot. And then on picture 5, that's the entrance exit on the far west end of that. That looks up at the teacher parking lot, which is up there. And then I turned it around, and so that's from looking east. You're looking down from the desert parking lot back towards Jefferson. So the question is, you can see that there is some, like on picture 1, there is some no parking. And I believe on picture 3, there's a little bit of yellow for no parking. But how far do we want to extend that? I wanted to get to get the 2 entrances, because it's the lower entrance that people were complaining about. And you can see what the distance is between that entrance, and then you'll be touching probably an already marked no parking zone. And then do you want to work your way up? How far would you want to work your way up from that entrance to the desert entrance?
I would say the least amount possible, so maybe start with one car length, one
try to
parking
go-
spot. Like, I'm not trying to be excessive with it, but,
You mean on either side of the gate?
well, there's already no parking on the one side.
Right.
So then just one spot between the lower lot and the upper lot, just to allow visibility for people pulling out of there. That was the concern.
But you're not saying extend this down further.
So, it looks like maybe that's already yellow.
Right.
So I'm not, I mean, that's already a no parking.
Right.
So then where it extends beyond that, up into the lot over there, just extend that one car length beyond what's already marked, no parking.
You could.
Closer to
You
the
could.
gate.
Closer to the
Six
gate,
parking
right.
spaces. So the kids will park there to fill that. You won't be able to do that now. But they can probably drive. I know.
Yeah, because I think, well, there's usually cars parked here when I went down through there.
Yeah.
And these guys, if there's not, they just slip out through there, but
Yeah.
usually there's cars.
Yeah.
Let me bring up the pictures on the screen here.
Maybe just Google Maps.
Yeah, I can do that.
I mean, isn't this already, this was painted right there at one time.
Yeah. So we just wanted to do it further down there.
What do
So
we think
from-
there was, like 2 spots there?
Maybe.
Maybe
So
2?
from that picture, if you
Yeah.
could extend that no parking, just one more car length, maybe still allow for one car to park there
In between the two.
in between the two, but just enough, or, I mean, if we could talk them into just eliminating that egress on the parking lot there and route them around to 3rd Street, but, I mean, that was the concern of the person that got hit on the moped, just that there's no visibility there, and kids are trying to pull out there and look around cars, and you can't see anything, and there's big trucks that park there, and,
Yeah, so you're looking at this spot
yeah,
in through here.
yes, sir. And again, I'm not trying to be excessive with it, I understand that they have to have places to park, but,
Right.
you know, safety needs to be the first concern.
Can we try it, Happy, with one more parking?
Yeah, so it was yellow marked here because it's the entrance and exit. And then, yeah, you can see where we have had no parking in that location.
Like I said, if they were willing to make that a curb there where there's no egress at all, then they could open all that up to parking.
Yeah.
But,
Well, they do have parking spots marked there, the park, I mean, you can see in the diagonal
On
ones.
this lower
Yeah,
end, yeah.
yeah.
But it's this, what
but
I
it's
think,
that,
what Eric's saying is that if they would block this as well, and just have people leave out Third Street, then you could have parking all through here, because you wouldn't have anybody trying to get out on Jefferson.
right.
And that's not,
How many
that's
spots
not
would
an
that
easy
block?
parking lot to get out of just one spot on Third. You kind of need to have both entrances on Third and Jefferson out of that parking lot.
Yeah. But they're gonna have a complaint one way or another, either that we're eliminating their parking spots or asking them to not exit from there. I mean, I don't know of any way to get around no complaints. You know what I mean? And most of the people that have to leave in a hurry don't park in that parking lot to get to a sport somewhere else anyway.
My question is was this an isolated incident and we're trying to fix something that has never been a problem? I mean, back when it was a grocery store, both entrances on this parking lot that's shown here were open, and there was traffic coming in all day long to Roger's store.
But how many of those
And
kids
there
were
never
driving
any
to
problems.
Valley?
Huh?
How many of those kids were driving to Valley?
I did.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, we all parked along there. I mean, I'm just concerned that we're taking action for an isolated incident.
Well, I mean, there's been at least 2 accidents at that in the last year, so it's not an isolated incident. Maybe it's not as frequent as some other locations, but, I mean, any, especially involving student drivers, is too many.
Especially on a moped.
For a parking spot. You know, like I said, if it was more excessive than that, then I would say we'd have some argument, but we're just asking to give up a
And I
parking
hate to
spot.
make more work, but can we get a bird's eye illustration, a drawing of it and the proposed?
To scale.
Yeah, so that we'd have like one parking spot between, you know, that way. it's-
Well, I was talking about the drawing part,
Yeah.
like, we're gonna play Pictionary here.
This is not the fastest computer, so you've asked it to do too much.
I don't think one parking spot would be too much to.
Let's keep this moment in mind when you talk about the budget for the new study.
Try one and see what happens.
Is this the internet speed or the computer?
Computer. Our Zoom call was fine, it's just, this is an old computer. Well, I mean, I can just bring back a GIS map and show you what that space would be. I think it's about, we'll see what the distance is. It's going to be 40, probably needs to be about 45 feet. We can take away 20, 25 feet for a parking space.
That'd be great.
Okay, we can do that. Sure.
We got time before school starts.
Yep.
Any other business? Yes, sir.
So before you adjourn, I'm just looking, I don't know if it's a problem or not, but I'm looking at this order form for visit widget. This needs to be executed by the end of the month. I don't know what all that takes for us to.
We've got
To
a
wrap that up.
tourism meeting on Tuesday, so.
And you've got a meeting before the end of the month, so.
Just pointing out, that's all.
Got 2 of those too.
I was gonna say, I didn't get, you're referring to the updated city administrator's agenda, and I'm like, I didn't
What?
get
I had
that.
2 of those.
I was just kinda peeking over your shoulder and looking.
I had-
Anything else? Exactly, that's a good point. Thank you, thank you. And at the risk of opening a can of worms, and I'm just gonna throw this out there, we don't have to have discussion tonight, but another resident brought up the unified trash service, citywide trash service again. I know that that's a 2-year process. I know that it's been beaten to death. But if we're going to do it, then at some point in time, we just need to get a start date and start that 2-year timer. But I know that that's gonna be a lot more discussion than we wanna go into tonight, but maybe for the
Apply
next
for it.
meeting.
We can always turn it down later. Apply for it now.
Yeah, get it on the books, but maybe we can discuss that at the next meeting, have that as a work session if you think.
Think it's
I got it
worthwhile?
on- I got it on the calendar, on the whiteboard.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? All right, we will adjourn.